The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast, Green Room number 51. This is your show where we cover all the latest news and hot topics from within our little driving instructor world. As always, I am your mediocre host, Terry Cook. I'm delighted to be here, but even more delighted that you have chosen to listen. And you'll be delighted it's not just me, because I am joined by the co-founder of the DITC, the verbal virtuoso, Mr. Chris Benstead. How are we doing, Chris?
Hello, I'm good, and I nearly said I'm lovely to be here. I'll stick with that. I'm lovely to be here.
You are indeed lovely to be here. We're also joined by the chair of the ADI NJC, the exquisitely exceptional Mr. Stewart Lochrie. How are we doing, Stewart?
I'm all the better after that introduction, Terry. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you both.
Well, we do like these fancy intros that seem to be doing the rounds at the minute. So let's see. We'll keep on going. I think I quite like this. We've gone away from WWF wrestlers. We've gone to something a bit more fancy. But we are back because in May we hit pause on the Green Room because we kind of decided that there wasn't an awful lot of news about, and rather than try and force it in, we would do it as and when news comes up. So 6 weeks later, we're back because the DVSA decided to do a survey, which seems to have ruffled a few feathers, not least the people joining me today, which may or may not be why we've got them on. But before we get into the survey, which we'll come on to later, there's a little bit of news I want to touch on because, first of all, the Intelligent Instructor and ADI-NJC, that bit gets forgotten a lot, have released details of the Expo, which has now been announced. So I'm just going to throw it open to you guys. We'll start with you, Stewart, as the chair of the NJC. Give me your thoughts on this year's Expo.
So obviously very excited. A little bit stressed because it seems like we go from convention expo, and we spend all the time organising it and running it, and we're all exhausted. And then Gina sends you a piece of paper to say, "What do you want to talk about in 6 months' time?" It's like you're on the hamster wheel kind of thing. But yeah, the biggest thing is that it's a new venue, which means that we're doing the right thing, and instructors are coming back, and instructors are telling their friends. And I like to think, I'm not sure if we have the data on this, but it feels like every year we're getting more PDIs visiting the NGC stand, which is a big thing for all of the associations, to get PDIs into these kind of training events, because as we all know, the sooner we can, let people see the good side of the industry, then they've got something to compare it to after they've been down the test centre for 9 months. They get to see the alternative before the test centre. So that's brilliant. Very excited about that. The lineup is the lineup. I think we all kind of know the regular faces. We are the regular faces now. I kind of feel like, which is positive. It kind of forces us to keep thinking about new things that instructors are going to want to hear us talk about, which is good. But I think that I'm quite excited that we have a doctor attending the conference this year. I just saw that a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully he's going to be talking to us about relevant things about health and wellbeing. Chris, I know that you started the ball rolling and all that kind of stuff with EDI Walkback. And at the NGC, we've just amended our constitution to make sure that becomes part of our kind of function, that we pay attention to that a bit more and provide services. I'm hoping that we also have, if not Ian Greenwood, someone representing the victims of road crashes. Ian Greenwood was excellent at the convention. Would have loved to have seen him given more time, given the distance that he travelled, to be there. So hopefully he'll be back. But I know that if he's unable to make it, we'll definitely have someone from that side. But yeah, so that's my feelings on it at the moment. Looking forward to it.
To be fair, it's 5 minutes up road from me, so we could have car shared if we planned it, but
oh, there we go. Yeah, you can car share.
We know for next time. But the other thing actually, is you mentioned the convention, we mentioned the expo. In between that, we've had the Scotland conference, which you were kind of in charge of with that. So do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown on that?
Yeah, how could I forget? That was really good. That was the second year we'd run the EDI NGC Scotland conference. It sold out very quickly for the second year in a row. I think this year was better than last year, and not just because you were speaking, Terry. I think I was very nervous the first year we ran it. I don't know why. Let's not go into a therapy session for me, but I felt more confident this year that what we were delivering to Scottish driving instructors was was relevant. I thought we had and a few of the speakers said this, that we had a really engaged crowd of ADIs and PDIs. They asked lots of really good questions. The guys who helped run it, of which you were one of those guys, it just felt really slick all day. Got to give a shout out to Adam from the Borders, who's a member of the ADI NJC. He's not on the governing committee, but he comes to all the conferences and volunteers to help. And he was in charge of the cards, like the 5 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute thing. And we got several comments that the timekeeping was excellent. So yeah, shout out to Adam. He got his own special mention. And he'll be back at the expo this year as well. But no, it's a good problem to have. I don't mean to be repetitive about it, but we're going to be moving to a larger venue for 2026 for the NGC Scotland conference again. So yeah, all good, all looking good, and you're more than welcome back again, Terry.
If you'll have me, I'll be there. But I love the fact that with the conference, with the conventions, with the expos, we're always looking at moving to bigger venues. I'm sometimes reluctant about that because I like things that I'm a bit like, I like them as they are sometimes, but I think it's positive that more people are coming. And I will just actually, you mentioned Adam there with his timekeeping cards. I love it because every time it allows me to do that joke of, I've got 10 out of 10 and now it's going down. Yeah. But, Chris, the expo, you highlighted something quite important, which they haven't done before, which was the fact that they've released the speakers in pecking order, almost.
Yeah, absolutely. In order of importance, if you have a look, I got pipped by Loveday. But if you have a look on the website to see who's speaking, absolutely order of importance. Diana Todd was less impressed.
I feel like we need to clarify because not everyone will know this. It's alphabetical order. But I did speak to Richard Stars, who is the guy at the Intelligent Instructor, about this because when did I speak to him? Oh, the Young Driver Focus event. I spoke to him there and said that I was actually quite annoyed that he'd put Loveday at the top. He's done everyone else now for the corner and put Loveday at the top. He's like, yeah, but she's the main event. I don't care. But speaking of the main event, Chris, the main event tends to go on last. And we / you have put forward that you and I could go up against the DVSA this year. So we will be going on last. So I think that we could call ourselves co-main eventers. What's the thought process between me and you going on last at the expo?
I think there's a lot of things. There's a little bit of tongue in cheek, I think, with it all of going, why not? Why shouldn't we be? But it's that thing of the industry tends to focus on the DVSA. And they tend to focus on, we're looking inward all the time. I said this on a video released yesterday that we were looking at the timeline. It's been at least 10 years of me feeling and saying that we should all be turning around and looking outwards. And this was before the mention of client-centered. It still existed, but it hadn't seeped into the industry in the way that it has now. That it was, let's look out. Let's look at maximum standards. Let's look at all those optimum things, not just turn and look at the DVSA. And especially, as Stewart's just been saying about the people that are speaking, there's some amazing content included inside of, just the innovation and the approaches of trainers that are inside there. And that's not just instructors now. There's let's say doctors. For a moment when you said my name after that, I thought I was getting a diagnosis and you knew something I didn't. But it's a whole raft of people, and it's bringing together road safety and driving instructors who thought they would be natural bedfellows because they never seemed to be. And we're building bridges, and the same thing talking to the DVSA who mentioned looking at insurance and being a tie-in with them. I've been trying to do that for again, probably a decade now, and trying to get a foot in the door. There's opportunities now that weren't there before. So it's always felt very strange that the highlight of the event is let's listen to the DVSA before you go in the room. It's kind of, I feel like I should because I might miss something. And then you go in and you listen and you haven't missed anything. And people come out having had an amazingly positive day, feeling incredibly angry and frustrated. Too often. political answers or telling us what we already knew, but at least we had the chance to ask the question directly and we had the chance to vent our frustration. Or there's always the one person who will ask about the local set of traffic lights near their test centre.
Toilets, test centre toilets.
Yeah. I personally don't care. I don't know if it's just me, but unless I need that toilet, then I might worry. But, that focus, it doesn't seem like the modern approach to me. I think there's probably more interesting things we could do. No one else was doing it, so I threw the idea in, and I didn't want to go down on my own, so I took Terry with me. But but they liked the concept and the ability. We're not looking to overshadow because we won't have as many people that want to listen to Love Day, but there might be some who don't want to listen to Love Day, so we're giving them an alternative in the same way that Channel 4 gave an alternative to the Queen's speech.
So much to come back on there. So first of all, I agree. It's always better to go down with somebody. Secondly, you said about missing stuff. I mean, the thing is, if you don't go, you will miss stuff because was it last year or the year before where Loveday spoke quite explicitly about not being against the reselling of tests and not necessarily being against bots? And yet we've just had this survey come out, which kind of implies the opposite. But what I would say is that, again, speaking to Richard Storrs, I know this isn't going to happen, but I'm mooting it anyway because I threw it to him. If we get more people than the DVSA, he said he will put driving instructors as the main event next year. So there you go. Now, the chances are he's going to put us in a small room with the DVSA, so it's possible. But either way, if we can get 10 people attending, Chris, I will be happy.
Can we work on percentage of the space that's filled? I think that we've got to work the metrics because that's the same as will happen in any DVSA survey, which we might come to. You've got to make the figures represent what you want to. So if we work on percentage of the room filled, the three of us in a broom cupboard would be absolutely no. Stewart's not going to come and see us, is he?
Well, the thing is, I think you're both being just overly humble here. I think that you're both going to manage absolutely fine to scrape together enough of a crowd to make it look at least not overly embarrassing. I was head to head with Lillian Greenwood. So the new MP for the incoming government. So and I think I did okay. I think I was maybe 90% full in my room. So I think.
And where is she now? Just saying. And also, I believe the message from Intelligent Instructor was that Love Day would sell more tickets. I'd like Love Day to put on a day's training course, and I'll put on a day's training course for the same price, and we'll see who sells more.
You really don't want Love Day to be delivering a training course. Come on.
Really do, because I want to attend it and just see what kind of skip fire goes on as a result. But yeah,
it'll be on PDI ADI before you know it.
Mark for edit. I don't know. Scrape together enough people so we're not overly embarrassed. That's how I live my life, I think.
Life goals.
Life goals. The only thing I dislike about this, and I've always said this, I think I say it every time, I think you said it's true actually, it's kind of the same people, and nothing against that, but I would like to see a few people from outside the industry, a couple more, to add that little bit more variety, because we are in danger of sometimes of being quite enclosed as an industry, but that's just my thoughts, because that ties me into quite nicely with the next thing I'm going to mention, which is the Instructor Meginar, which on the 10th of July at 11 a.m. This is sandwiched nicely in between the Intelligent Instructor, I'll get these wrong, Super 6, and the PDI ADI full day with 4 instructors. So they're going to steal my audience, so it's fine. But if you want to go into one, pick one, but pick mine. But the Meginar, the 10th of July at 11 a.m., it's free. And I'll announce the speakers that we've got. So we have Andy McFarlane, Graham Carter, Hannah May, who is from the private therapy practice. We've got Tom Stenson, Rebecca Morris of Vision Zero Communications, Kevin Tracy Field, Hayley Field, they're not related, at least I don't think they are, I should check really. Hayley Field is the lifestyle ninja, and we've got Kate Walker from the Diabetes Safety Organisation, and indeed Phil Cowley. So I'm going to come to you first for this, Chris, and I'm going to ask for your thoughts on that lineup, and I am banning you from saying that is a Terry-style lineup.
How much was it to listen to those 10 amazing speakers?
9, and it's free.
Is it? No, there's 10. You're counting Kevin Tracy as one person, aren't you?
I'm counting the sessions, 9 sessions, 10 people.
10 people, yes. Right, there we go. So free. Cool. I think where else would you get that? That is an expo without traveling. Why would people not? I am always fascinated to see the diversity of the lineup and whether it gels, and it shouldn't. It should clash, and you should have this this move from one to the other where it doesn't make sense. But I know that it will. It'll work, and it will make sense. So I look forward to that, because I will find myself sitting there going, hang on a mo. We've gone from, what have we had previously? So someone talking about something fairly mundane to breathing heavily. It's not often that happens in my life.
Oh, I only had to replace 2 people this year. One of whom is a partner of someone that may be on the screen right now, and another one we may be talking about later. So, Stewart, have you got any thoughts on this lineup?
No, I think it's great. Obviously, as a former Meginar speaker, Terry, I remember. I don't think we knew each other particularly well at the time, but I found the whole experience manic in an exciting way. I felt under pressure on the clock, and I don't know how you felt. It must have been crazy. But yeah, I thought it was exciting. I thought it was new. I think it was the second one. I must have missed the first one, but yeah, I think it's brilliant, and it's going to be brilliant again, undoubtedly.
You were on the first one, and yes, the timings. I gave up after Bob, and Bob was the first speaker. So I learned from that.
It was the technical problems again, wasn't
Yes,
it?
technical problems. But yeah, I'm really excited about this, and it's the 10th of July, 11 a.m. Make sure you subscribe to the Instructor Podcast newsletter. It's the best place to find all the informational links and stuff to sign up for it. And if you want to find what that is, there's links in the show notes, or you can go to the website, which is instructorpodcast.com, and sign up over there. But let's take a minute to set the table before we get stuck into the meat of today's episode. So let's go with Stewart first. Stewart, do you want to just remind us who you are and some interesting things about you?
Oh, come on. My name's Stewart Lochrie. I'm the chairman at the ADINGC, also in a small driving school, and I'm the founder at Bright Coaching, where we offer a professional diploma in coaching and behavioural change for safe driving.
And Chris, same to you.
So I updated my my LinkedIn today, because I suddenly realised it was out of date, and there's people that use LinkedIn because I don't. So I am, according to my LinkedIn, the theory specialist at Theory Test Explained. I do theory stuff. If you've got theory problems, get in touch. I am the co-founder of the DITC, the Driving Instructor and Trainers Collective, where I point people in the right direction for what they need, but they can't find, or what they don't know that they need and they can't find it. So I do that. And then I also occasionally work with my own driving school and my own instructors. So I look forward to that as well. If anyone's got questions about running a driving school, I'm happy to chat, because I've done lots of that this week.
I went on LinkedIn for the first time in a while recently, and yes, lots of notifications, lots of messages, and I've missed lots of opportunities, which is slightly annoying. But either way, yes, you're listening to the Instructor Podcast. To find out more, head to theinstructorpodcast.com. If you enjoy these and you want even more, sign up to the premium membership. There's currently a week's free trial on the £10 tier. But the biggest thing that I am pushing at the moment is the Meginar. It's completely free. I don't earn anything from it. No one gets paid. It's just a way to give people 20-minute segments of interesting stuff. So make sure you've got that in your calendar for the 10th of July at 11 a.m. But let's move on, because as I said at the start of the show, we hit pause on the green room until some news came along. And then the DVSA decided to release a survey that I believe they're calling a consultation. Chris, you have been remarkably quiet about this. You hadn't said any word about this survey to anyone, and so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
My thoughts are, before you walk into a DVSA room of a DVSA organised meeting, don't put out a possibly slightly controversial video about your thoughts, because you'll stay up all weekend worrying about what's going to happen and whether they're going to shut the doors on you. But all is good. Yes, it's not a survey, it's a consultation. I was corrected twice. on that front. Because the difference between that is a survey is they're just asking questions. A consultation is they're actually listening to your opinion. I think it's very easy for driving instructors to accept the options that they are given as being the only options. And I think that's where I come at it from. Is just because they're the options that are given doesn't mean they're the right ones. Just because you say no doesn't mean there aren't going to be other options. Although, that does assume that they're going to listen in the first place. And I am assured that they will. That's part of the process. It's a, I believe, a legal requirement that they listen. So, I am cynical about it, but my biggest fear is that we're going to give something away and not get it back. And we have to remember that behind the scenes at the moment, they are planning the new booking system, which they have a budget for, that is going out to tender or has gone out to tender. So I don't know if they've got actually someone who's doing it yet, but that's the stage they're looking at. So they're planning this system. And the questions on the survey are very much suggesting a cheaper version of the system because there'd be no driving instructors involved in it. And if you've built that, there's no taking that back. There's no adding us on later because there's no budget for it. So, that's my concern. The most important thing is whatever you think, go and fill the blooming thing in. Because the biggest problem is if we do not take advantage of the opportunities that are provided for us to give feedback, we won't get asked next time. So if you don't want to be shut out of something, you have to engage with it. That doesn't mean you have to accept it or agree, but you have to engage with it. So calling all cars, if you like, all driving instructors need to have filled in that survey. If you haven't, you're letting the team down, right? You specifically, whoever it is that hasn't. I don't care whether you think they won't listen. Then go on there and fill in you never listen anyway as part of your answer. That's absolutely fine. I support it. We need numbers and we need opinions in there. If you're not sure how to write an opinion, go and explain your position to ChatGPT as best you can, and it will write it for you. It will take your words and it will put it into something that sounds better, because we're not all very good at stringing sentences together. It's not always the way that we communicate. So that's the way we've got to engage. Do so. Find a way of making it work. Ask someone else to write it for you. I don't care. Fill in the survey. I'll say consultation. So, do it, fill it in, get your point across, because otherwise it won't be there in the future. As a personal opinion, be careful what you wish for, because you need to think long term, because a short-term win, if that's what it provides, doesn't, and I don't think it will, but it doesn't mean that, then they're going to put the plug back in and then allow us access, because I genuinely don't believe that will be there if it's not needed in a new system, because that would be a waste of government money.
I'm not calling it consultation. I refuse to, because it isn't. If you're asking closed questions, it's not. I realise there's a box there where you can type stuff in. It's not a consultation, it's a survey. But anyway, that's probably the least important thing, but it is my pet peeve at the minute. Stewart, let's come to you for your overall thoughts and whether there's any disagreement or agreement, Chris.
Oh, that's a bit awkward that you just added that in, because now I need to disagree with both of you, which puts me in a very awkward position. I think it is a consultation. I think a survey is what do you think, and a consultation is what do you want to happen. And yeah, you can have a consultation with crap options, but it is a consultation. Something will happen as a result of this consultation. And that something might be nothing. So when I first, obviously, going to the NASP meetings, I think kind of to give a bit of context of where I approached this from. Since I became chairman, since I became acting chairman, you at the NGC, you become privy to all of our members' frustrations, very real frustrations, and you get a real insight into the amount of stress that's out there. Not that I was oblivious to it before by any stretch of the imagination, my circle, if you like, the network of driving instructors that I'm privy to in Glasgow, in Scotland, and the Scottish Facebook groups, my feeling is that the vast majority of driving instructors don't book the tests for their pupils, and they very much leave them to it. When I was a full-time driving instructor for 10 years, and I didn't book any tests for any of my pupils, ever. I couldn't tell you what my OBS login is or how to get onto the system at all. So the frustration is coming from members. Members write in, here's some ideas. Ideas everywhere. You know, honestly, like 6 or 7 times a week, there's an email from somebody with an idea. And the overbearing feeling was that something radical needs to be done. Outside of the obviously very common ones like hire more examiners, pay them more money, all these arguments, the DVSA had to do something more radical, and that built up and built up and built up, and then it was maybe a couple of months ago it was just kind of coming to a head. At the last NAS meeting, it was like, you know, what are you doing that is more radical than the 7-point plan? Because the 7-point plan is obviously not working. So, and the DIA and the MSA and the NGC, all of our members had representations from our members that were saying something radical needs to be done. So my first impression when I saw the DVSA consultation was, right, okay, these are some of the things on this are suggestions from driving instructors. These are not DVSA suggestions. These are suggestions that driving instructors have written to membership organisations with, that we have passed on to DVSA because that's our role. You know, it's not up to us to filter things out because we think they're daft. We will pass these things on. So my first impression was, okay, taking driving instructors out of the loop. Well, no, that's not sensible at all. Making learners, and this is me separating my personal opinion from the ADI NGC, which does not have a stance on this. It cannot have a stance on this because, in the way the DITC can, DITC is, Chris and Ian, we have a governing committee of 20 people. I can't jump onto Facebook and put out a video saying this is what I think you should do. I had to wait till a week on Saturday for the governing committee meeting in person down in Coventry. But my first impression personally was that it doesn't make sense to me that we give learners control. It doesn't make sense to me that we have only driving instructors with control. It makes sense to keep that the same. So that was an option. That is an option in the consultation. You can vote no change on that bit, and you can vote for something else in the second part.
Mm-hmm.
And on the swaps, this is something that Peter Harvey spoke very well about at the NAS meetings, and that was something that was a little bit radical. And we were under the impression that the system just wouldn't be able to do it because DVSA hadn't came and told us that. So then to find out that it could be done was like, okay, so that's an option. Let's see what the industry says. When I saw Chris put his video out, I was like, what's he doing? That was honestly my first reaction, Chris. And I jumped on immediately to Facebook and I sent you a message and you very graciously said, well, I'm free now. And we had a really good call.
Mm.
And I needed to understand where he was coming from because I didn't know where you were coming from, Chris. It seemed to me that, and obviously I know you, no offence meant by this, but it felt like you were campaigning on behalf of the industry, but only the section of the industry that had the same ideas as and approaches to it as you did. And I don't think that was fair. And I think I kind of explained that to you. I hope I managed to explain that to you. And my worry then, which I probably didn't articulate very well, but I'm better able to do it now. My worry is that we have people in the industry who have made representation to us with these radical solutions, and they don't particularly want control over driving tests. They just want some kind of fix. They want a short-term fix. And that's probably my approach at the moment, personally. I want people to stop emailing the NGC shouting at us, obviously. But I want my driving school, the instructors in my driving school, to have a bit of leeway around the stress that they're going through with their pupils. And if this could possibly do that, so why don't we try it? That's probably my kind of personal stance on it, if you have one. And at the NGC, we weren't able to do that. We weren't able to to go out and say, we encourage you all to do this the way that the DITC did. We can't do that because we know that all of our members have such a wide range of opinions, but also we have that on the governing committee. And we found that the meeting we had at the governing committee in Coventry last Saturday was a really, really good debate with really strong opinions on both sides. There were people like myself and Lynn Barry and Sue Duncan, who don't work full-time as driving instructors, who felt perhaps not overly qualified to be pushing the conversation either way. We have people like Fiona Clark, Kettering, who's probably on the side of the argument, Chris, Andy Lloyd down in Portsmouth, they do the same with the WhatsApp groups. But then we also had people like Dave Allen in Birmingham, who every time he's on season WhatsApp groups in the West Midlands, and he has people on these WhatsApp groups selling driving tests. I've got 10 driving tests in Wolverhampton for 4 weeks on Saturday, charging more than what the price of a driving test should be. And really angry, and other people on the governing committee with these opinions as well, which is why we came to our solution of let's just have a blog post from 2 of you, if you're able to do that, and we put it out as a presentation. The unfortunate thing is it's very long, and I don't think anybody's read it. So you did. Thank you, and thank you for sharing it. So those were my concerns at the time. I still have those concerns now. But yeah, Joe, it's okay to disagree on these things. It's okay to disagree. And that's where we are. I don't know what will happen. And you said a couple of times, Chris, I guess just to finish, that doing something is not always the right option. But sometimes no change has consequences too. Doing nothing has consequences. And we shouldn't pretend that it doesn't. The DVSA said on the and I'm cynical about the DVSA as well, but these options have been put forward for a specific reason. They are options that require no legislative change. They're trying to pull the levers that they have control, that they can reach. The thing on the new test booking system, I believe it's up to the Treasury. It's with the spending review that it's kind of been leaked out slowly now. And I don't know what will happen with that. I genuinely don't know.
The issue is they've said no change, not us. That was their statement in there, which is to continue as it is now. And actually, that's not true. So what it is that this change is not the change that we want potentially, but it doesn't mean we're not open to other changes. So the very no change statement is, which I appreciate I may have made in the first place, is an issue in itself inside of that consultation. But that's the way that it's been pitched and taken, which is you either take one of these or you get nothing. Well, no, because there's other options. There are other options in doing it, and I think it's really interesting. So, firstly, the 2 responses from myself as the DITC have been conflated in that, which is firstly we put out a questioning article about what does it really mean, and it was phrased, a lot of it was phrased as questioning, saying what is the outcome going to be, and then following our conversation, which I thoroughly enjoyed and appreciated, because it helped me get my thoughts straight, and by the end of it, the biggest thing for me was that what we're doing in removing instructors from the equation, and it's less about the swapping, and less about the location, the distance. I think there are problems with that, which are more about the fact there is not wiggle room in the system for it, and there's a little bit of chicken and egg going on. But the taking instructors out of that equation is putting it in the hands of pupils, and the evidence we've got is that they're not making the right choices, as most instructors know from the phone ringing every day with people saying, "I've got a test next week or tomorrow, can you help?" And that there's that step and solution to it. I acknowledge everything that you said. Absolutely. I and I also had had Dave phone me from Birmingham saying, "Can we have a chat? Because I want to know what you're thinking." And various other people that did the same. More than that, I think the way I see it, and I'm absolutely biased, and I don't apologise for that in any way. I have massive respect for all of the associations and the work that they do. I really do. I think sometimes, and this is kind of where the DITC started, sometimes there needs to be a voice to shout against, or to hold people to account slightly, to kind of say, to get action happening, because that's what happened with COVID and lockdown. There was silence for too long. So, someone needed to break the silence, and I've never been good at silence. We know that. So, I started that when I just put out a video saying, look, we'll keep you informed, which I think any of the associations could have done, but everyone held their breath at that point. I've openly criticised that in the past, but I have then praised particularly the NJC, because I think the NJC really came into its own. And I'm not saying that because you're in the room. I think during lockdown, that community spirit that is part of what the NJC represents came through. That's what shone. For me particularly, I think the DIA and MSA had different strengths on that, but that community spirit came through from the NJC, and that is part of the industry that I like being a part of. I don't like people, but I do like persons, and I definitely valued that. I always said, you can't turn back time, but I always said it should have come sooner. Something should have come sooner. I also got to appreciate the difficulties the DVSA face and the way that their hands are tied. And I learnt during that I don't have to agree with them to support them. Being there, being part of that equation is sometimes what's important. And that's why, so I think I speak for Ian as well. I'm a little bit careful when I speak for me and when I speak for the two of us, same as yourself. So I think I speak for Ian as well, in that I think sometimes having an opinion allows other people to voice theirs. And from the feedback that we've got, and there's always a bias, and I'm talking to the right, but you're the expert on bias in the industry as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry, that sounds really negative. That's not what I meant. I meant that that's your bright coaching area is
Not,
looking at.
I'm not an expert. I'm an enthusiastic amateur at most things, Chris.
There you go. Is that I accept the bias and the Facebook or the social media bias, because that is is Brexit all over, isn't it? And there's a horrible parallel between the consultation and Brexit, and I think that I'm very aware of that as well. The voice seems to be that people are saying that they are concerned about handing over that control to learners, not to the DVSA. But
yeah, I think they're right. I think they're right to do that. I think they're right to be concerned. I think they're right to be concerned about that, and I don't think that would be the way forward for anyone. But I think it just goes back to that. Why are these options in the consultation? These options are in the consultation because the call for evidence. It was suggested, or it would have been proposed in the call for evidence by driving instructors. And that's what we saw at the NGC. I appreciate your words about the NGC, and I appreciate all the stuff you do at the DITC as well. And you do have a unique position in the industry that I am occasionally envious of. It's all good. It's all good. It's it's all good. The most important point is that more driving instructors engage with these calls to evidence and with these surveys. The line I put on our post was, I can't remember it now, I'm going to look it up, but every time our industry fails to speak up in force, it loses its credibility and its ability to effect change. Now, if you've been super cynical about that, you do say that they've potentially made their mind up already. I don't believe that. I think the DVSA is just scrambling around, desperate for ideas, the same as the rest of us, because they're limited in what they can do without legislation. I guess the final point is going to feel like another bit of a kick, and I don't mean it this way, but the option that you're putting forward is the one that is automatically going to get people backing you because you're sticking two fingers up to the DVSA and the survey consultation thing. So obviously it's going to get the likes. It's a bit more difficult to go onto social media and say, "Hey guys, let's give them a chance." You're not going to bomb your engagement figures through that stance particularly. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it.
I think that I look forward to the day when I can happily stand there, and it's possible. We've had meetings over the last couple of weeks that I think really positive. I always feel like I get let down. The friend that always says, and it's often me because I don't like people. But anyway, the friend who says, let's go out and do something. And then at the last minute, they end up not doing it. And you can only get away with that so many times before people say, sod you. I feel like that. And it might be that I'm too old and cynical now in this industry to because of that, there's an edge to it. I try to be incredibly aware of that. And I appreciate it's not what you meant. When you said I jumped on Facebook and had a response, there was a lot of thought before that response.
Yes.
And trying to work it through. And I hope that that's just as a personal thing. I hope that's what I kind of stand for, is that my reasoning tends to be relatively, it might be biased, but it's still strong, that I try to work things through. And, I'll put my hands up if I speak and then think later. I always reserve the right to change my mind. As anyone who gets in touch with me, having listened to an old episode of the podcast, finds when they say, you said this, and I went, really? But in the moment, in the the environment in which we're in, the one thing that isn't being said outside, and it's possibly that I'm one of the few people that can say it above the parapet enough to be heard, is I am concerned about the fact that we're constructing a new booking system and removing instructors, and the new booking system is on. I know people in IT, that is a tight budget. That's not one that a lot of them would touch. It's not one a lot of them would get out of bed for. So we're not looking for bells and whistles. So if we can, cut off some of the branches, that makes it a lot more affordable. And I get that. I'd say I've got an IT background and I get it. It doesn't mean it's right for everyone. Someone suffers. And so I will just reiterate my biggest point. If I want to see, what are we, 40-ish thousand on the register?
42, yeah.
Cool. We'll have 42,000 responses from ADIs then, please. ADIs and PDIs, please. PDIs can have an opinion too, because some of them felt they couldn't.
So that's another 5,500 PDIs, I think, on the trainee license.
Can we make a prediction, just for fun?
How many will submit?
What were we, 5,500 last survey / consultation?
Yep.
I don't know what that one was, but yeah, that one. So that was at Christmas.
That was a call for evidence, wasn't it? That wasn't the actual consultation. I think it was 5,200 something.
Okay. We get higher or lower, or
I'll go exactly the same.
Let's say higher.
I'm going to back myself, having shouted at people to respond, and go 7,000.
Okay.
Let's say higher than 7,000. 7,001. No, the interesting thing for there, we're going to potentially talk a little bit later on today about some of the hoo-ha we've seen on social media over the past few months. But what I would just say, anyone that is considering doing anything on social media that disagrees with anyone, listen to that last 20 minutes, because that's how you disagree with people respectfully. And I quite like that. So,
I hesitate to bring up other podcasts on your show, Terry, but the rest is politics. Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart, the catchphrase for their show is agreeably disagreeing? Disagreeing agreeably. That's what it's all about.
But Chris, you said something I just want to ask you on, and maybe this is one of those times where you've said something and hoped I wouldn't remember it. I don't know. But you said there were other options that could have been in the survey. What were the other options that could be in the survey that are doable? Just to clarify, that's my question.
You mean I can't hark back to the fact we should have made it 18 for the driving test right at the beginning, listen to Chris, and then there wouldn't be a problem in the first place?
I agree.
Should that be the motto of the industry now? Listen to Chris and then there'll never be another problem.
I'm getting good at knowing when to repeat a phrase over and over again so people remember that I did say it and they chose to ignore it. And then when you turn around later in the day, months and months later, and go, maybe we should have done this, I find that really frustrating, and I don't think that's unfair. So things that they should do, I believe there should be a system in place in which the worse that you fail, the longer you have to wait to come back, because then that would improve test readiness, and it would mean the people who are good enough are getting the tests. Because
Let me pause you, because whilst I agree with that idea completely, the question I was asking, and maybe I misunderstood what you said, was I thought you were saying there were more options available in this survey.
No, we're not given those options in the survey. We're told you can. So I do a bit of magic, which is something I've got in common with Tom Stenson, who always reminds me of Dynamo. Anyway, just so I could share that image, so when you see him, it's you can think it. And that's not that's just magic. It's all good. So in magic, there's forcing things on people. And sometimes you can have an approach where you think that you're picking out of the options, but actually the outcome was predetermined. Anything that ever happens on Britain's Got Talent, basically. So that approach to things is what's being offered here. It's going, well, you've got this, and this to choose from, but we're forcing that because we've got to choose change. Otherwise we're bad people. So therefore there's the offers, and you've basically, there's a binary choice going on. There's two binary choices because you can go with one and not the other, but there's those, do we, don't we's, and that is an illusion of choice. And that illusion of choice is being done really well. And as long as you know that's an illusion of choice, that's fine. You can enjoy the magic trick, go for it. And you can make a choice inside of those if you want to, because you can choose to go, okay, so if these are the options, which one am I going to choose? That's absolutely fine. But, and I think this is where, as the DITC, we really feel is the holding people to account moment. People need to know that they're making that choice to go into there, and just be reminded that you don't have to choose for the sake of it. And not mentioning other podcasts, but I think sometimes that is the natural approach for instructors to go, well, these are the options we've been given, so we've got to take one of them. And it's just trying to make sure that people do it for the right reasons. And if that is your reasoning and that's what you believe in, fully support you in that, because that's the world that I want to live in, the one where you've made an informed choice. Because that's what we want of our drivers that we're creating, whatever level of work you're doing inside the industry, from the newbie learners through to the fleet stuff. We want to create thinking drivers. As trainers, we want to create thinking driving instructors. There's not enough of them. And you do that by being informed and having the information that you need, and by challenging stuff so that you get to the point where actually you've worked out what's not right as well as what is right. And because I rarely miss the opportunity. And it's a story I have told before, so I apologize if you've heard it before. But I was running a course that Lou Walsh came on, and I thought I made the very safe statement of, surely all driving instructors want their pupils to be safe. And in her really frustrating way, Lou said, actually, I want my drivers, my learners, to be able to choose to drive dangerously. Because if you haven't got the choice, you're not making the right one. You're doing what you're told. So, I think it's the same case. It's that thing of, that's fine. Make your informed decision. Just make sure it is an informed one. It's too easy not to. It's also more easy not to bother filling it in the first place. So stop being lazy. Please go and fill it in.
Here's my issue, and I'd be interested in both of your thoughts on this, because I haven't expressed this. I've let this simmer inside. I'm just really annoyed there's a bloody survey in the first place, or a consultation, whatever the crap they're calling it, because why? I do not get the relevance of this survey. And if someone can explain this to me, then please do. Because you mentioned it, I think, Chris, like the Brexit. We didn't need a vote. We either someone does it or someone that knows an awful lot more about Brexit than me needs to make that decision. I do not know the inner workings of the DVSA and what they can and can't do. I think you mentioned it before, Stuart, where you said you didn't realise there were these changes that they could actually make. And it's like, right, I don't know what actual changes they can make and what actual changes they can't. So why are they asking me? Why are they asking 42,000 of us? Why not use the data and the information and the expertise they've got rather than us? Now, I'm going to caveat that and say there is a survey, fill it in. I have, and I've shared my thoughts on it. So even though the survey is out there, that I disagree with this survey being out there, I still think that we should be putting it, completing it. So I don't care who. Can one of you just tell me if I'm thinking about that incorrectly or not with regards to the fact there shouldn't be a survey like this in the first place?
So I think there has to be a consultation. I think there has to be a consultation because driving tests are a public service. And I think, I can't remember who told me about this. But there is something around this consultation that whatever happens with the consultation, they can't implement anything immediately. If anybody's business is going to be affected by this, you get a chance to put your case forward. So it has to be open. It has to be democratic. People have to be allowed to put their views forward. They have to be able to say to the government, "These are reasons why this is not a good idea to happen." I think it's just politics. It's just government, and I'm not an expert on any of these kind of things at all. But this is the way things are done. And I think there is a little bit of naivety around things like, just pay the driving examiners more. Yeah, okay.
Mm.
It just doesn't. Life doesn't work like that. Life does not work like that. Unfortunately, and just to give a second point like that, the reason there is a consultation is that because everybody has been screaming at the DVSA to do something. They're doing something.
That was actually the point I made. Sorry, Chris. I'll just say this. I'll let you jump in. I think because I couldn't attend the NJC meeting the other weekend, I had an interesting experiment with some stairs. Turns out, don't try and do ballet when you're turning around on the stairs. Doesn't work, at least if you're not qualified. There's a lesson in there somewhere. But that's something I expressed, I think, that this is where I've got a bit of sympathy for the DSA, genuine sympathy. And it's unlike me to say that. Because if you look at the past year and what people have been shouting about more and more, so we had so many driving instructors complaining about the bots and complaining about other instructors booking up tests and reselling them. And every convention or expo or whatever's a DVSA, I hear instructors asking the DVSA that question. Then the public get wind of it. And we see it all over social media now. Whenever anyone said, the public are blaming either bots or driving instructors or whatever they're tagging it line it as. And now it's in like mainstream media. We've seen it on BBC News and websites and stuff. Again, blaming bots and whether that is driving instructors or whatever. We can see how that's all labelled together. And this is where I've got a bit of sympathy for the DVSA, because they're now turning around and going, well, actually, if everyone's complaining about this one thing and we can actually change this one thing, maybe this is the thing we change. So I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying that's where I've got sympathy for them, because they're being pillared by that. And then that's the thing they're doing, now getting pillared about that, included by me just then. But the reason I made that comment so long is because I can see how much it's annoying Chris, because he's desperate to say words.
You're being naive.
Nice is the word, I think.
No, you're assuming that everyone's got good intentions.
I'm not assuming anyone's got good intentions. That's the last thing I do.
So let's say that you just say, look, just make the changes, just do it. You're assuming that's for the good and the good of everybody and not the good of the individual. Look at how many politicians you would trust with, your own decisions. It's that thing. It has those checks and balances have to be there, because firstly, they don't necessarily know the right answer. They would if they listened, but they don't necessarily know the right answer. And they don't know, it's not going to be the right answer for everybody. So making a change, fiddling with it just to see if it works, assumes the good intentions of the person who's doing that. And that's not to say that anybody at the DVSA hasn't got good intentions, because individually, I think they're all doing an amazing job and they are all trying really hard inside the constraints. However, you then have to also take into account that the best position from a political perspective, and this isn't about the individuals, this is about the government as a machine, is not moving, is not developing something. This is why I couldn't work for civil service, because most of the time you're working towards something that you know is never going to happen, because there will be a change that happens along the way to prevent it from actually evolving into tangible change. Because the Secretary for Transport will change, or the government will change. And you talk to people at the DVSA, some of them came in under Conservative, some of them came in under Labour, and they've seen those switches and they've got different perspectives because of it. And they've got to be the stable force for the sake of the country inside of that. And being stable is about not having change. And the problem is that there is a massive clash between what is most successful in nature, which is the most flexible element in any system, is the most successful, and actually stability, which involves not being flexible and not changing, and that balance between them. But we know which one made the dinosaurs extinct. But we are here for but a moment, but the country hopefully is here for a much longer period of time. So that difference is incredibly important. You've got to ask those questions. You've got to allow those challenges. Hopefully they've got to listen to the feedback as well. I'm under no illusions that chances are the same thing's going to happen, because there's other wheels at play, other pressures at play of what's going on and why and everything. And it's fine. We'll survive. Whatever the outcomes of those consultations, we will survive. But I do think that instructors' resourcefulness and coping strategies have been underappreciated in the benefits that other people have taken credit for. That some of those movements forward have actually not been anything to do with the change at the DVSA end of things. It's been the resourceful adaptiveness of the entrepreneurial, self-employed spirit that means that, do you know what, we've got to get up and deal with whatever cards we've got dealt that day, and we'll continue to do so. So that's fine. Despite whatever changes are made, it's fine. We'll go through. It's not going to end the world. But I think we've got to take it seriously so that we get the best version of things as possible.
Can I just come back on that? I'm sorry, I disagree again. The bit at the start coming back at Terry about good reasons. I don't think that's a fair representation of why government departments do things. Government departments do things to make things work. I believe that people go into government to make things better. People go into politics to make things better. I actually believe that people get involved with national associations to make things better. And I appreciate what you said earlier on about where the cynicism comes from. I don't have cynicism. I have immense frustration, but I have to believe that there are people somewhere who want to make things better, who want us to stop shouting at them, who want the general public to stop shouting at them. That the Secretary of State definitely wants people to stop asking, MPs to stop asking questions about this in the House of Commons. That the Secretary of State for Transport wants to stop being questioned by whoever is the Chief of Staff for Keir Starmer at the moment on why is this still on BBC News? Governments do care about news cycles. Governments do pay attention to these things, and their job is to make them go away. The role of politicians is to make them go away. That doesn't mean it's easy. But if you believe in politics as a force for good, and I completely appreciate that many people don't, then you have to believe that the people who work in these positions believe in some way what they're doing. And I hold my hand up to accusations of naivety as well. So I couldn't let that go.
But the checks and balances are there to prevent the people who aren't there for the good, and most are. Absolutely. If you get a chance, Black Mirror, the Waldo episode, be aware there's some challenging stuff in it that, is a lot of bad language. But that, I think there's those things of what happens if, and then a couple of episodes after that, this was filmed 7 years ago. The AI episode, which 7 years ago, AI was not the thing it is now, but it's scary how accurate those things are. That's not saying they will happen. That's not saying we're heading towards a dystopian future. It's saying the checks and balances are there to prevent that from happening and things getting, and political will is we only have to look back to Nazi Germany for the fact that came from an initial trigger because of a political will from the people. So those what I'm saying is those checks and balances are really important in case there is someone but hopefully they are. But we can't not have, as Terry was suggesting, we can't have someone just go in and flick a switch to see what happens because they think it's the best thing. Because
completely not the suggestion I made at all. I did not even make a suggestion. The point I made was that I've got an element of sympathy for the DVSA because they've been pillared, and have they potentially now just gone, we don't want to be pilled anymore, can we do this? There was not a suggestion there.
You said that, I believe you said that, you don't know why there needs to be a consultation. They should just get on and do it.
It's not a consultation with the broader public. And then Stewart corrected me and said, well, we're democratic. Yeah, that's a valid point. I think there definitely needs to be a consultation, but this doesn't feel like a consultation to me. This was my point. It feels like they've asked, 6 questions that have got closed options, and it's not very broad. And as you say, Chris, very limited. We're not gaining anything from this as driving instructors. The public might gain some access to books and more tests, but then not might use it properly. So and again, this is just a semantics potentially, but when we're talking a consultation, I want someone to ask me questions, open questions that I can then answer, not just go, these are the 4 choices we're giving you. And by the way, you can fill in this little box that we'll pretend to listen to, because let's be honest, people listen to this podcast, but how many people actually go and do something off the back of it? It's easy to listen to people, not make a response, but just on the naivety bit, I do think there's a difference between being naive and being hopeful and having belief. I've got a date tonight. I have to believe that she's not a serial killer. I have to believe that, right? Because I don't think I'm naive. Naivety is the assumption that she's not a serial killer. Although there is a story that I might tell you both when I've finished wrapping up. But I think there's a difference between that. But I don't want to be the podcast host that goes, I've said my bit, now we're stopping. But I've said my bit, now we're stopping, because I want to move on. I think we've done that to death. I don't think we need to get into that anymore, because I do want to talk a little bit about social media, because there's been a bit of a hoo-ha, and not just over the past week, but over the past 6 months. I can remember on the green room with you guys and Tom Stenson saying that what it feels like over the past 6 months, so keep in mind I said this in December, but what it feels like over the past 6 months is that there's less collaboration. There's online, there's all this stuff coming out, and people are promoting each other a bit, but they're not really connecting. There's not really collaboration. It feels like there's more headbutting going on. And it felt like that's got worse and worse and worse throughout this year. And again, I'm not even going to name the stuff that's gone on, because I think if you start naming stuff, you miss other stuff, and this doesn't get mentioned. It takes out of context. So I'm not going to name anything. And it's not just one point. As I said, it's the stuff that's been going on for a year or so. But I thought it would be worth us talking a little bit about how we deal with some of the crap that goes on social media, because we've all faced it. And there's a lot of people out there that are scared of talking on social media. They're scared of asking questions, because they ask a question, they see the response they get. They're scared of posting. They're scared of putting their face on social media, this stuff. And if I'm wrong, then please tell me, you guys, when I throw it over to you. But I don't think any of us particularly want to be on social media, as in going, look at me, I'm this person talking about this thing. I think we do it because we want to help the industry, and the way we do that is by putting our face on things. So, yeah, I'll come to you first on this, Stuart. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, and how we can, your experience with social media and handling the negativity and stuff?
So I think there's something about the industry when you do something other than teach learners. As soon as you do something other than teach learners, you're putting yourself out there as a legitimate target. Maybe that may be a bit strong. I might come back and change that word in a minute once I hear what I say. Because I don't know what I'm going to say. In terms of what people think of you in the industry, people judge you on what you do, and as soon as you put yourself out there in social media, people start forming opinions on you. So, I run a driving school. Okay, I get people on. I help people launch their careers once they pass the Part 3 test, and they come on a franchise with my driving school. So I'm a franchise. I'm also a training company. So I market myself and my services and my courses on Facebook, and I take money off hardworking driving instructors. I'm also the chairman of a national association, and nobody likes national associations. I must be the most unpopular person in Scotland in terms of driving instructors. But I put myself out there because I believe that the work that I want to do in this industry is just worth any kind of nonsense that comes with it. But I think that anyone who thinks that they have training to sell, and all of us on this call sell things to driving instructors. And with that comes a little bit of a spotlight, I guess. Maybe the spotlight is a better word than a target, if I can change that word. And that to me, that's part of the job. It's part of the job. I don't think it's any different than before social media or before computers, and there's a couple of restaurants on a high street somewhere, and one of the restaurants decides to go all garish and have people handing out flyers to try and entice people in, and special offers and certain uniforms for the people they have handing out. It's just business. It's marketing, and how people choose to do that is going to attract attention. It's going to attract judgment. It's a social media equivalent of that. To flip it to the other side, I guess, if you are a business on social media, especially in our industry, to a large extent revolves around coaching now, which is brilliant and client-centered and emotional intelligence. I think we all have to have a very, very high level of self-awareness about what messages we're sending out about our brands. Because every time we post something on social media, we're communicating with lots of different people. And it's very tempting to think that you're only communicating to the people who like you. And unfortunately, you're not only communicating with the people who like you. You're communicating with people who have already decided that they don't like you. And you're also communicating with people who have never heard of you before. And just like meeting you in the street, they will make their minds up about you in 7 seconds, or the first paragraph of a social media post. And I think that level of self-awareness is very, very important for any business on Facebook in particular, because it is difficult. It is challenging. You asked for a personal experience. I was once outed. Well, not outed. That's the wrong word. That's very much the wrong word. I was punched down, I guess, on a very, very well-known and well-respected industry leader's newsletter that went out to his 10,000-strong mailing list before anyone knew how it was in this industry outside of Glasgow and Edinburgh. And that was really tough. I took that very, very personally, and I had no right of response to any of that. I tried my best. I responded on Facebook to the small following that I had at that time. But I was upset. I was pissed off. I was pissed off. As you guys will have been previously. But on reflection, after many, many years, I attract that level of not deliberately, but by doing what I do, I'm going to attract attention. And I need to be resilient to be able to handle that, because it's a price worth paying for the difference I want to make.
I learned something a couple of years ago as a result of a complete, I'm going to say mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was me being a dick. There was a recording I did for my membership before it got big, and I won't name them, but I said, I will never use this company. Again, I won't name the company, but on the recording, I said, I will never use this company. And I just kind of said it flippantly. I didn't expand on why, I just said this and then kind of carried on. So, of course, you can imagine the message I got, why won't you use this company? And it clicked for me straight away. I've got some kind of influence here, and I could damage someone's business by saying that. Now, thankfully, that was way back when the membership was quite small and it wasn't a public thing I did, because I didn't intend to damage a business. I just made a comment. And I learned from that pretty quick, like, oh, crap, I don't want to ever I don't want to accidentally damage someone's business. But it's also interesting, like this week, I've put I think, some really good social media content up. I really believe that. The single most popular one I've done was a meme about the DVSA, which I checked with both of you, actually, as to whether you felt it was appropriate for me to post. So whether you were saying, yeah, because you thought it was, or yeah, because you want me to get in trouble, I don't know. But
It saved us doing it. You did it.
yeah. But that's the thing that's been the single most popular. You can go out and put all this awesome, really good stuff out, whether it's this podcast or whatever it is you might do, you will always get noted for something that's been not as wise or not as clever. But Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
I had the baptism of fire of starting the first Facebook group for driving instructors. So when Facebook groups came along, and that was in the days that social and media hit each other head on, and suddenly lives, everyone was sharing what they were having for dinner, and people were still trying to figure it out. And they weren't realizing that human beings were at the other side of that screen because they weren't used to it. I think some of them now know that there's human beings the other side of that screen and do it deliberately, but other people forget. When there's been companies or individuals that have ended up having problems, I can think of 3 occasions when we've had these conversations on the green room, where we've stopped and said, we need to remember that there's a human being behind that company, behind that face. And it's the same behind a profile, behind whatever. Firstly, I learned very early on that I'm really lucky. I have a way of engaging via social media that seems to work, and I can start an argument 100%, but I can also often end an argument by articulating it in that way. I've learned not to start them more. You wouldn't know that looking at recent events, but I have learned not to start them more. But there's other people that don't have that. I feel that, we have IQ and EQ. I feel there needs to be an SQ of some kind of like, that understanding of social media as a separate approach, because we're not looking at a human being, and therefore those other things don't always step in. So I've been involved in some massive fallouts, some that I deserved to be involved in and some that I got caught up in. As the person who came along and tried to solve some problems, you end up being the villain of the piece through no fault of your own. And I don't want to be here. I don't want to be. I don't have a desire to be whatever. I don't even know what it is. I know Stewart listed all of his hats. I have the same issue, and people come around the room to me and say, "And who are you? What are you doing?" I haven't got a blooming clue. and I don't know why. There's not a plan behind it. I'm not a a professional spokesperson or whatever. Influencer wasn't a thing when I started doing this. Most people decided that I was, because we were behind the screen, I was 60 plus, and I went to bed with the highway code because there was a persona that I shared, that was quite specific to facts and things, a pedant, if you like. And those that know me know that, yeah, I am, but that's not the point. There's other facets to me as well. And I've met some of those people that I have massive rows with, and we've got on really well. And some of the people that I've had massive rows with have ended up being really good friends behind the scene, but publicly people think we hate each other. The awesome Liz Sheridan, who is no longer with us, she was a really good friend of mine, and we used to exchange messages and everything else. But publicly, everyone thought she absolutely hated me, and she kept that going quite happily. But when people were, abusing me behind the scenes because they were in a room that I wasn't allowed in, she'd let me know what was going on and what was happening and everything else. And it is, I think there's those horrible sides to social media. It's 24/7 as well. You can't get away from it. And it's forget us, right? Most of us are old enough and ugly enough that we can turn things off. It often goes too far before we realise that we can, and we shouldn't have to step away from social media. But sometimes it's the best thing we can do. I feel for the kids more than anything, because if we're suffering when it is their life, you wonder how do they get away? If I had an issue with someone at school. And again, I tended to have a way of talking myself in and out of problems. So I was a grey person who didn't have a particular friendship group, but most people I got on with all right. If I had a problem, I could leave it at school. In a job where I was, if I have a fallout with someone in the job that I'm doing at the moment, it's me. That's worrying, because I do disagree with myself regularly. I agree. Half of me agrees with Stewart 100%, and the other half totally disagrees. So, I think that there's that thing of, if you're in a work environment, you can leave it at work. You might dread going in the next day, but at least you can go home and have that space. We are driving instructors in a way that, with a lot of us, not everyone, there's some people that it's just a job and they leave it at work. But the majority, you cut us through the middle, and it says ADI. I always say I've got green blood, because I think and breathe driving instructor first. That's always my response, and therefore I've immersed myself inside of it, and not just myself. I've taken others down with me. My other half is more versed on the driving instructor world than most driving instructors. My kids, the same thing. They see it and they hear it, and they listen in. They hear me recording videos or teaching theory or whatever it is. They're very in tune with it, because and they came out on the big learner relay with us. They were born of the relay. One of them more than they know, and it's so important that it does take over. So A, you take it personally, but B, you come back fighting. And that means that you're closer to the edge of snapping and breaking than you realise, because you put up with it. And today was ADI Walkback Day, second Tuesday of the month. I accept certain places in the country do other days, and that's absolutely fine with me. But officially, second Tuesday of the month. There were 4 of us out in the woods in my area. Notably, and it's different in different areas of the country depending on who's taken the reins, but notably where I am, there's a big male dominance in who comes along, and the regulars, and it was very much notable that we started the walk talking shop, and then it got to problem pupils, and then it got to our problems. And we acknowledged between us, we're really rubbish as blokes, particularly talking emotion. And we covered everything on that loop today. through to like hardcore depression and suicidal thoughts and everything else. The whole thing. When you're doing that and you are a sole person sat in front of a screen or sat in a car with the pretend people that come along that are your pupils, they're a separate thing. It's just you. And then you have to go home and put a front on in front of family or, the people that you deal with and everything else. And I say have to, because it's in your makeup. It's who you are as much as you won't, and you want to shout and scream and you can't. And then we know, and I'm talking absolutely personally on this, that the one time that you feel strongly enough, the one time you feel strong enough to say help, that if you say that to a GP, they hand you a phone number and say, give them a call. That's wrong. So many people don't get to that point of saying help. And for me, that's what social media should be about. It should be about the community. It should be about all of those things of us all working together and being able to disagree like we have here, not like they have on social media, whoever they are. You see it, all the trolls, all the arguments, the nastiness. And that's the post that I put out over the last couple of weeks. I haven't had any of that nastiness on there. There's people disagreeing. Rightly or wrongly, but they've done it in a way that there's been very thought out points, and it's moved away from that shouting and screaming and throwing stones that we're getting with the DVSA because we've opened a conversation. So I'm going to go back from that and say, come on the walkbacks, and if you haven't got one locally, start one. It only takes one of you to start it, preferably two, because talking to yourself in the woods is weird. The second thing is go and fill in the blooming survey while you're waiting for someone to turn up in the woods, so that you do that. And the third thing is think about the human being the other side of things, because that might be the one occasion that they need to say help and you need to be listening.
The other thing I'd just chip in with here is this is something I'm guilty of, and I'll hold my hands up to this. I'm trying to get better, and I am getting better, but I am something I'm poor at. Is I'll see a post. Let's say you put a post up, Chris, talking about, I don't know, something a bad driving instructor would do this. My brain will go, oh, I did that 3 years ago. And start thinking I'm a bad driving instructor. Or I'll see you talk about an experience you've had with someone that was negative, and I'm going, oh, is that me? Is he talking about me there? And I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks this. I know a lot of people do this, but it's easy to see something being written and assume it's about you. When often it might just be like, I know I do this sometimes where I'll put a post up, and the reason I do it is that it comes in my memories 12 months later to remind me. But I've had people come to me before and say, was that post? I'm like, no, I promise it wasn't, So, and even with the DVSA, because I know I felt this before, when you get an email from the DVSA that's complaining about something about driving instructors, it's easy to think they're complaining about you, but they're not. It's just you've received the email because they send it to all of us. And it's not aimed at that individual. It's aimed at the people that it's aimed at. So I think if you're on social media and you see some of this stuff, maybe just accept that there's a damn good chance it's not aimed at you. And also, if it is aimed at you, how much do you care at the grand scheme of things? When you get to your deathbed, you look back and go, oh, that one person said that one thing that one time. I mean, to be fair, I might, but whatever. Anyway.
My version of that, just to find my version of that is, apparently, since taking on this role at the NGC, nobody in the country is allowed to criticise a national association without me getting angry about it. I'm like very protective of all national associations, even the DITC, Chris, because it's easy to throw stones at associations, isn't it? And just something else you made me think about there, Chris, talking about SQ and the people behind the business. It's actually very much like driving, isn't it? The way we act in a car is very, very different to the way we act when somebody brushes into us when they're walking down the street. And it just made me think a little bit like that. We wouldn't. Somebody wrote a blog for the NGC, and we put it up on the website. Somebody spent a lot of time writing a blog post about a topic related to driving and education. And then people are on there attacking the output of somebody who's volunteered their time in a national association and volunteered to write something that is of interest to people. What's the point? What's the point? You know. Anyway, that's my rant. Sorry.
No, I love that because I don't want to dwell on this, but I get that with a podcast. Someone will listen to a 90-minute podcast and pull me up on one thing. I'm like, what about the other 1 hour, 28 minutes? Did you like that? And they'll say, yeah. Why didn't you mention that bit then? Why are you just mentioning the one they gave? But Chris, looks like you want to say something, but I'm going to introduce it by saying Stewart called the DITC an association, I believe.
I'm just going to ignore that bit. I know. Just as a little Easter egg, so that people can go and have a look. The most recent video from the DITC that we recorded before we went to the DVSA meeting this week. That there's a slight error in the captions on there, which is amusing. It's a Freudian slip. The number of people that's what they commented on, the one word, not the other 99% of stuff, is very telling of that's often our approach, isn't it? It's that thing. So yeah, go and check that out. There's a nice little Easter egg in there. I hope you find it funny.
I was in Bristol with Chris yesterday as well, and I was desperate to find a DVSA logo somewhere behind me so I could take a selfie to say just enjoying my tea and biscuits with the DVSA. We've got Ian and myself standing posing outside. We've got that picture we were going to use. That's what I wanted. Cozying up with the DVSA. Yeah.
I will post the other one, which is the notice that they have above the toilet, which was even more interesting. So I'll put those out later.
In 2022, I started an Instructor Podcast playlist for Spotify. I used to get everyone that come on would tell me their ultimate driving song, and then as with a lot of stuff that I do, I forgot about it. So I'm bringing that back. So there is an Instructor Podcast playlist. That'll be in the show notes. I'll share it on social media. But I'm going to ask both Chris and Stewart to give me a song. It doesn't have to be the ultimate driving song. Just any song that you might listen to in the car that you like. Stewart, what's yours?
So this is going to split the crowd. Okay, I have quite a bizarre taste in music. I've not gone with Radiohead, but it's almost as weird. I've gone with Mogwai. You guys familiar with Mogwai?
No.
As in the Gremlins little thing. So yeah. Mogwai are a band from Glasgow. And because of all the travelling that I tend to do these days, they have a song called Yes, I Am a Long Way From Home. Not for the faint-hearted. It's there are no lyrics at all, but it's a musical piece. Lots of loud guitars, and then lots of very quiet guitars, and then lots of loud guitars again. That's the thing I like.
Chris, what's yours?
Nice. I probably totally the opposite to that, which is, not unexpected. I'm yours, Jason Mraz. Because firstly, you cannot have a bad day listening to that song. If you're feeling down, it's just one of those happy, skippy songs. But it's my nearly 1-year-old's favourite song. If I start singing it, she starts dancing. So I can't not have that as the song that will make me smile and make me happy. So yeah.
Oh, I don't know either of those, so I look forward to discovering them. Chris, remind people where they can find you if they want more Chris goodness.
I don't know anymore. They can find me via the DITC, theditc.co.uk. They can find me via theorytestexplained.co.uk. Or you can find me, trying not to offend people on Facebook.
And Stewart, where can people find the protector of the associations?
The protector of the associations. Fantastic. You can find me at the ADINGC or at Bright Coaching. We have a new professional diploma launching in a couple of weeks at the end of June. Still have a couple of places left on that. And
all the links from everything we've spoke about today will be in the, what do I call it? The episode workbook. There you go. They will be in the episode workbook. So make sure you subscribe to the email list to get those every month or every time we do an episode, which I said we're monthly, but will be the first of 2 this month. So yes, go and check that out, and you can find out more at www.instructorpodcast.com. But big thank you for joining me today, guys. We kind of threw this together a little bit short notice, and thank you for joining me. And what do I say? Keep raising standards and driving instructors towards Vision Zero.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.